Hey guys, J.Anthony, welcome back to my channel. To those of you that haven't been keeping up with my videos, I'm still screwing around with my GoPro and doing really goofy camera angles. So this is going to be an interesting video. This is going to be a 2-year follow-up to one of my more popular videos I've ever made, which is why I sold my Rolexes. And I'm going to do a caveat right now. Generally on my videos, if you've seen them, I tend to come off without a personality, and I try to keep them very boring and informative. I really don't try to inject too much of my personality because I don't want to offend people. I have a habit of cussing and I'm not particularly polite. So if you're easily offended by poor language and or easily offended regardless, I would probably suggest you skip this video because I'm going to be myself and I'm going to give my real opinions on things. So now that I've said that, again, I just don't want to offend anybody. I'm making this video for a couple of reasons. So if you've been watching my channel, I've been doing these vlog series where I answer your questions every week. This is something I just thought should be interesting, should be addressed. 2 years ago, if you haven't seen the video, feel free to check it out in my comments. I sold all my Rolexes off, and I made a video about it on YouTube. And I'll be honest with you, it was a terrible video. I'll be the first person to own up to that. It was really uncoordinated. I just was kind of all over the place. And because I didn't do a great job in that video, a lot of things were probably misunderstood. You know, I was all over the place. I told people that I was worried about them getting stolen. I told people that I was worried about servicing cost on them. And those things are honestly really true, but they were not the real, they weren't the biggest factors in why I got rid of them. So, you know, like about getting stolen, I used to go into New York City every once in a while, and like going to New York City or other big cities, Chicago, Detroit, wearing those watches, you know, I wouldn't wear them. I'd wear my cheap watches, and I like to spend time in downtown areas, so I just wasn't wearing them that much. Granted, there's plenty of guys out there, I have no doubt, that are watching this video that have no issue wearing really expensive watches in those kind of places. And, you know, if that's the way you are, then good for you. I'm happy you're comfortable with it. I also whined about on that video servicing cost. Yes, buying expensive watches, like buying expensive cars, buying expensive homes, buying expensive anything, there's going to be expensive servicing costs, no doubt. And that makes total sense. I just think they're ridiculous because I think their costs are inflated. And, you know, part of it is the whole deal of you're using a luxury product, they can charge you luxury prices. And again, I get that. But the reality is I know people that can service those watches for 150 bucks, and if I have to send it into Rolex and pay 1,500 for the same fucking service, that to me is a ripoff. And the reason that I say you have to send it into Rolex is because right around the time I sold those watches, Rolex got really restrictive on their parts. And there was a lot of Chinese fake aftermarket parts hitting the market, and if I wanted any kind of confidence that the watch was going to get fixed with real Rolex parts, I had to send it into Rolex, and I was going to have to spend 15 times what the fucking service should cost to service the watch. So it just pissed me off. It wasn't that I couldn't afford it. It was that it pissed me off that I had to spend way more money for something that I needed to, because Rolex made some dumbass decision to keep all their parts for themselves and not let independent watchmakers work on their watches. And the reason that I got so paranoid about this, if you've watched my channel, you might have heard, I had my Rolex Daytona fixed by an independent watch store, a highly respected and authorized Rolex dealer of all places, and I found out they put Chinese parts on it, and I had them fix it. And again, so that was the whole deal I was getting with why I didn't like paying for servicing cost. And, you know, again, if you read forums, some people tell you don't have to have the watch serviced every 5 years, maybe it's every 10. I know people with Rolexes that have gone 30 years and never serviced them. Why then was I so concerned if that's the case? Well, I think every watch depends on how often you wear it and how you treat it in terms of when you get it serviced. But I'll be honest, my Rolex Daytona was a total piece of shit. You know, like I said, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I'm just going to be honest on this video. And, you know, I guess I'm a little, why I'm kind of talking like this too is, you know, I get a lot of really dumb comments on that why I sold my video, or why I sold my watches video. And so I guess my way of dealing with stupid people and stupid comments is being, you know, brutally honest. And again, some of this is my fault for making a poor quality video. And to those of you that enjoyed the video, thank you. I mean, I know over 80% of the comments on that video and have been thumbs up versus thumbs down. So again, I'm not really bummed about that. But I saw there was an opportunity to kind of set the record straight. And so, you know, my Rolex was a piece of crap. My Daytona, I should say, the chronograph broke on me multiple times, and then I took it to a shop to get it fixed, and then they put Chinese parts in it and whatever. So I was done with the Daytona. I didn't trust it anymore. I thought it was a piece of shit, and I was just really disappointed with it. I had a Rolex Samara at the time too that I liked, but honestly, I started getting the Japanese watches, and it just honestly wasn't doing it for me anymore. And I think I had a Rolex Datejust. I had a couple other pieces at the time, but the reality is that I wasn't wearing them that often. And you know, you guys may disagree with me. I want to set the record straight. I have nothing against Rolex, and I said in that video, and I'll say it again, I have no doubt that I'll probably own another one in my life. Rolex makes great watches. They do. They're wonderful watches. I don't think they're overpriced. People buy them at that cost. They're worth what people are willing to pay for them. Nothing against Rolexes at all. But again, I was upset with my Daytona and the other Swiss watches that I had at the time. Honestly, they just weren't doing it for me. And part of my personality, and I don't know how you guys are too, is I'm passionate about a lot of things, and my passion for Swiss watches kind of ran out. You know, I got really obsessed with Swiss watches. I had Holy Grail watches. I wanted a President. I wanted a Daytona. I basically bought every Swiss watch that I ever could have wanted, and I basically kind of, you know, I popped my cherry, so to speak. I had the experience. I owned the watches that I wanted to own, and after I did it, you know, it's like most things in life. You want something until it's yours, and you experience it, and then you move on to the next thing. And I'm appreciative of the watches I had, and I enjoyed them, but it came to a point where they just no longer did it for me. And for whatever reason, God knows why, I got obsessed with Japanese watches, and I went down that route. You know, it's no different than cars. There was a time, if you would have met me 10 years ago, I was the biggest BMW fanboy in the entire world, and I thought BMW made the greatest cars in the world. And then, my personal opinion, you're welcome to disagree, they got really unreliable, and their quality, everything became cheap hard plastic that failed after 50,000 miles, and the cars didn't drive the way they used to. And, you know, coming out of 1990s and early 2000s BMWs to driving, you know, late 2000s with the 335s and their fuel pumps failing and all sorts of that crap. And I saw the E65 7 Series just like plummet in reliability compared to the E38s. And again, in the early 2000s or 2010s, the newer BMWs just kind of, to me, drove like luxury cars that didn't have the feel they used to, and they didn't have the quality they used to. I was like, all right, I'm done. And I didn't like them anymore. And that doesn't mean that they're crappy cars. It doesn't mean that my opinion is the only one that matters. I'm sure there's people, and if you like BMW, nothing against BMW, I'm sure you have really good reasons for liking them. I decided they weren't for me anymore, and I started buying, you know, what am I driving now? I'm driving my Lexus. I've always had a thing for Corvettes. I started buying and collecting Corvettes. Long story short, what I was passionate about changed. And so, again, this is all over the place, but again, I sold my Rolexes because I was fed up with the service. I was fed up with my Daytona in particular. I just got really upset with that watch. And they just weren't exciting me anymore. And, you know, life is really, really short, and you need to do what's going to make you happy. And at that point, I just wasn't interested anymore. Honestly, the money that I got from selling them, it's still sitting in my bank account, most of it. I haven't really touched it. I'm fortunate, you know, a lot of the dumbass comments that I got in the video is I must have run out of money, and I want to touch on that premise in a sec. But no, honestly, I spent a little bit of that money actually on this car I'm in now. I bought this car as a daily commuter, so that's, I think my Daytona and my President paid for this car, if I remember right. But you know, like I said, I didn't need the money. It's still sitting in a bank account somewhere. And you know, I can go out and buy something else if I want to. And truth be told, I've been looking at Swiss watches again. I'm not really sure what I want to buy. And actually, if you guys have some feedback on some really good Swiss watches, give me some feedback below. I feel like my collection now has gotten extremely overbalanced on Japanese, and I do want to kind of counterbalance it a little bit. You know, I've looked at some Jaeger-LeCoultres. I'd like a Reverso. Some other things out there. I might even look at a Calatrava Patek. I don't know. Well, long story short, again, I'm not off on Swiss watches, and I can still afford them. But the reason I bring that up is not that I'm butthurt about people thinking that I'm poor now. The thing that upsets me isn't that they're moronic comments. It's that people are really like that sucked into the gravitas of Rolex to think that the only legitimate reason why somebody wouldn't own one is because they can't afford one. I mean, that is complete and utter fucking bullshit. I'm like stunned that people leave those comments. It's like, really, there are really people out in this world that really think that if you have the money, you would own a Rolex, and there's really no other reason why you wouldn't own a Rolex. Are these people, I mean, if they really bought that much into the marketing message, they think Rolex is like the greatest watches in the world? I mean, again, I have nothing against Rolex. I've owned several, apart from my crappy Daytona, and I expect that mine was a one-off. I think the Daytona in general, I'm sure, is a very good watch, and the 4130 movement is still porn to me to look at. I think it's a beautiful movement, and it's got like 350 plus parts. It's my inner engineer thinks that movement's really cool. But Rolex, at the end of the day, is still a watch. And this is what I don't think people seem to realize. I think they build these brands up in their mind to think that they have almost like these like godlike qualities to them, and they don't. I mean, a Rolex is a Rolex, and it's at the end of the day, it's a watch. And I grant you, it's nicer than a Timex, but it's still a piece of stainless steel. It's not like this, crazy, incredible thing that is just. There's no reason why somebody wouldn't want to own one. There's plenty of other watches in that price point that. I can see legitimate reasons why people would buy other watches for that price point. And so there's a multitude of reasons why somebody wouldn't own one. And there's a multitude of reasons why people would sell them and trade them in for other watches. And if you go to a lot of these like secondhand stores, you'll see secondhand Rolexes. It's like any car or anything else in life. People trade them in on other stuff. And I have a lot of friends that traded in their Rolexes for Panerais, who've upgraded to Patek Philippe's, who've downgraded and then moved on to like Longines, which I'm not a fan of. But point being is, you should buy stuff that's to your taste. It's not like earn this much money if you can afford it, buy a Rolex, that's the greatest thing ever. Rolex is a watch. It's like cars. I mean, variety is the spice of life. Try other things out. Just because you can afford a certain brand doesn't mean you should be locked into buying that particular brand. It's like, again, I whined about this on my watch snobs. It's like I think, especially in the U.S., you guys can tell me how this works overseas. I think there's kind of this unexpressed expectation that if you make, 6 figures or more, you need to be, you should own Louis Vuitton, you should drive a BMW or Mercedes or an Audi, you should, wear a Rolex. I mean, it's like you're not allowed to have any creativity in what you buy and what kind of goods you enjoy. It's like expected that you've achieved this status in life, and you have to tell everybody you've achieved this status in life by buying these stupid brands. So, again, to those of you that think that the only reason you wouldn't have a Rolex is because you can't afford one, I'm sorry, you're very short-sighted. You need to do your research, and I'm willing to bet that if that's the case, you've either never held a Rolex or owned a Rolex, or also unfortunate is you've never experienced watches outside of Rolex, or you've never done any research on watches in general. Because if you've ever owned a Rolex, you will realize at the end of the day they're just a watch. And if you've ever owned watches beyond Rolex, especially ones of that tier or above, you will realize that while Rolex are nice watches, there's plenty of other brands out there that have their own merits, and that Rolex does not have some godlike status or is not the exclusive maker of fine timepieces. So, and to those that keep posting comments on that video too, well, you're going to regret your decision, and it was a poor decision, and you'll be sorry. I'm wearing my favorite watch I've ever owned right now. This is my Seiko Monster, SRP 307J1. You can look it up on my channel. I can tell you 1,000% honesty, I like this watch 10,000 times better than any Rolex I've ever owned. I love the way it looks. The quality on this watch is every bit as nice as it was on my Submariner. I grant you the movement isn't to the same specificity, and I'm sure, there's not the same accuracy, what have you. As a daily wear watch, I like this watch every bit as bad, if not more so, and I actually think more so than my old Rolexes, especially my Sub. This watch I like 10,000 times better than my Sub. Does that mean this is a better watch than a Rolex Submariner? That is a totally subjective thing, and your opinion may vary. I think that my opinion has some gravitas, as I would be willing to bet that I've owned far more watches than most of the people that watch my channel. And of all the watches I've owned, I can tell you, at least from my perspective, that this watch is every bit as good of a watch as any of the Rolexes that I've owned. So, do I regret my decision 2 years out? Am I crying because I sold off all my Rolexes? Not at all. Am I, piss poor now, and I just am making up excuses and covering up the fact that I'm poor and I had to sell those things because I'm broke? I think I'm doing all right. I think I'm doing okay. I'm not going to go start bragging about where I live and how many cars I have and what my bank account looks like, because only insecure, stupid people do that thing. But I am totally comfortable telling you that wearing a couple $100 Seiko, this is my favorite watch I've ever owned. I don't regret it. And to any of you people out there that think that the only reason you don't have a Rolex is because you can't afford one, do yourself a favor. Go hold one, go buy one, and try out other watches in the market. And sooner or later, hopefully you'll wake up to the fact that they're just a watch at the end of the day. No better or worse than any other. And their price point, logically. You know, everybody has their favorites, and I have my own brand biases. You know, you ask me what my favorite cars are, I'll tell you. You ask, I think certain cars are crap. There's certain watches that I think are absolute crap. But for every one of my opinions, there's, you know, all you have your own opinions, and that doesn't make anybody right or wrong. We all have reasons for feeling the way we feel. We all have our own biases. But to just flat out make assumptions or think these things just is ridiculous. So to all you insecure people that watch my videos and get off to thinking that the only way you can feel secure in your masculinity, your femininity, and that you have any value in this world is to brag to people about how expensive your watches are, and things with nameplates are the only way you feel like you can impress other people. I'm just going to tell you right now, life is way too short and for you to be that insecure, and you're never going to be happy if you buy shit to make other people like you. You need to buy things that are going to make you happy. And I'm on my way to a funeral right now of a good friend who, one of the nicest guys, most down-to-earth guys ever, multiple car collector. He has multiple, I'm a Corvette guy, but he raced Porsches. He had multiple brand new Porsches, GT3s, Cayman Rs, you name it, 993 twin turbos. More money than God, but the most down-to-earth guy ever. He had this piece of crap $500 Tag Heuer, which I gave him crap for. But again, this guy could have, I say all this because he could have afforded, you know, a multi-$100,000 watch if he wanted to, and he decided he was going to buy a used $500 Tag Heuer. So your income level, your value as a human, and all that stuff is completely irrelevant, and you should not be using your insecurity or what you want people to think about you as the motivating factor for buying your goods. Buy what makes you happy. I'm driving this older Lexus because I like it better than the newer ones, and I'm totally comfortable in my decisions. I don't need people to know that I can afford a $90,000 car to feel validated at the end of the day. And so again, here's my rant. To those of you that have been following me a while and haven't really gotten a sense of my personality or think I lack one, this is actually the way I talk usually. I'm a very sarcastic person who likes to swear a lot, so hopefully I haven't offended anybody. And but yeah, that's how I feel. So yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for all you guys that watched this whole rant of mine. I still am happy I sold my Rolexes. Now, my channel in general, if you like what you've seen here, you like my other videos and you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, I want your feedback. And so if you want to leave a hateful comment, it's kind of, that happens with YouTube, I get it. Please do. I laugh at them. They actually provide me endless entertainment. If you want to give me good feedback, I appreciate that too. Feel free to critique me. Tell me what you agree with. Tell me what you disagree with. And ask any questions too from my vlog post. If you haven't seen them, I create these vlogs every so often where I answer your questions. I want to help people become better watch enthusiasts, and I want to become a better watch enthusiast myself. I'm here on this channel because I want to give people honest watch advice, and because I also want to learn more from you guys, my audience. This is a collaborative effort. I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable watch person in the world. I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable anything in the world. There's a bunch of things I don't know, and I don't pretend to know and never will. So tell me what you think. Your opinions matter to me. I may not be able to respond to all your comments, but I promise you I read every one of them. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my opinions and feedback with you guys, and I really appreciate that we have the ability for you guys to communicate back to me. So any questions, comments, suggestions for future posts, please leave them below. If you absolutely fucking hated this video, tell me below, and I promise I may not take it, but I will definitely read your advice, and if it resonates with me, I promise to incorporate it. I'm learning every day to be a better human being and to provide better content for you guys. So thank you so much. To those of you celebrating Easter this weekend, have a wonderful Easter. And as always, thank you so much for your support. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, guys.